Welcome back to another episode of JamPacked, Business Made Easy with AI. Our podcast helps you work smarter, not harder, with the help of AI. And today we're diving into the world of public relations with Emily, an account director at Crackle PR. Emily brings over a decade of experience helping tech and AI brands share their stories with the world. Today we'll explore how AI is transforming PR from eliminating repetitive tasks to enhancing creativity and strategy, and how you can use these same tools to grow your brand visibility, whether you're a small business or a global team. Let's jump in and talk about the future of PR in the age of AI.
There we go. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. Go ahead and I already kind of jumped ahead before we started recording, but go ahead and tell us, who you are and where you're calling from, and a little bit about, why we're connecting today.
Yeah, so my name is Emily Kane, and I'm an account director at Crackle PR. We're a public relations agency that serves a lot of companies in the tech space and also in the AI space as well. So I bring a decade of mostly B2B, but also some B2C public relations experience to the table. And I have so much fun every single day telling the stories of the brands that we represent and also just overall building awareness for them. And I'm really excited today to talk to you about the best practices that, other people, whether you're in an agency or another professional service, about the right ways and the responsible ways to use AI to make your job faster, easier, and more fun.
Woohoo! We love that. Well, before we get into that, give us a little bit of background on who you are, and you mentioned that 10-year experience. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I was one of those lucky people who I went to school for public relations and communications, and I've been in PR and communications roles ever since. So I'm one of those lucky people that picked a career path and I actually like it. And I've held a variety of roles at different agencies across the years. So right now at Crackle PR, we're pretty much a pure PR agency and we really focus on that. But before coming to Crackle PR, I really kind of cut my teeth with integrated marketing. So bringing together public relations with paid campaigns, with online activations, and really bringing together the earned, owned, and paid. So that's my experience. I also, for a good chunk of my career, I spent a lot of time in the construction and interior design and architecture industry.
Okay.
So I understand breaking down really complex topics, which has really come in handy when it comes to working now with tech and AI focused clients. And then personally, I love to ski and I love to hike. And I just love doing all things outdoors. So I'm really, always excited to kind of do the tech and AI startup PR by day, but then get to spend time away from the screen by night.
I love that. I love that. Very cool. And one of the first things I saw in your background was a picture of the whales. And then when you said you were in Pennsylvania, I'm like, wait a minute. That's cool. So tell me a little bit about the background of Crackle Communications.
Yeah, so we are a fairly new agency. So we are an agency founded by Perry Hedrick. He is the head of our organization, and during COVID, like so many of us, was reflecting on his job and what he wanted to do next. So during that time, he founded Crackle PR with the mission for Crackle to be a different type of agency. And by that, I mean to break free of all of the things that honestly suck about working in an agency life. So, bending over backwards for clients who aren't very nice to you, chasing every single dollar, no matter what. Also doing things like filling out timesheets and tracking your time by 15-minute increments. These are all things that everyone was used to in a traditional agency, and Perry founded Crackle to, one, bring free of those kind of silly things that bog people down, and two, to realize that PR and communications, there's so many ways you can reach your audience, and it's not always by just traditional methods. We need to be really smart and figure out for each client, for each industry, where are people at? What are they reading? Where do we meet them where they're at? So we spend a lot of our days figuring out for each client, should we be on podcasts or should we be on Reddit? Like, where do we need to be to reach those people? So that's kind of the genesis of Crackle. And here we are, several years later, and we're growing as an agency, and we're definitely more mature now and have definitely stuck to kind of our core starting point and still enjoy those values to this day.
Okay, that's awesome. So who is your ICP? Like, who is your ideal customer, and who are, some of your clients that you guys work with? And you don't have to get nitty gritty, just, big picture.
Yeah, definitely. So we run the gambit between startups, those that are early in funding to well-established enterprises. One of the best parts about working at Crackle PR is that we not only do we work with clients in North America and the US, but we also spend a lot of our time serving clients globally. We have some really cool clients all around the world, spanning the gamut from, B2B, very niche technology to more consumer technology. So we help those global teams know and understand how to reach a US audience. So we have clients that range from dental software to a sleep tracking app, to HR technology. Really runs the gambit between all the different types of technology clients we serve, but the majority of them all have that core of some type of technology or service or product that they are trying to build awareness for.
Okay, so it's the awareness piece. And I love that you guys are one of your specialties is really helping these clients of yours bring awareness to US markets. I think that's pretty unique. How is, what was Perry's background and what was your background that really, brings that home?
So Perry actually started out his career as a journalist, and then he transitioned to public relations, and he spent most of his career building some really, really big agencies. So he came from Shift Communications, that's one of them, before he started to build Crackle. So we love Perry's expertise and background because, our job all day is most of the time to connect our customer stories and our client stories with journalists. And so to have Perry and to have other people in our team who are former journalists, we can speak the lingo the best. So that's kind of Perry's background. And again, in my experience and really everyone at Crackle is writing. Everyone has to be really, really good at writing and content to be able to be a part of our team, because that is the essence of great storytelling. So my background is in writing and public relations, but again, a core competency is definitely writing for us so that we can make the connections between the story brands are telling, the stories that are out there in the world that journalists are interested in, and how those two things connect.
So then what does a day in the life of Emily from Crackle Comms look like? Like, what does that look like for you? Like, what does your day-to-day kind of look like? And I'm sure it varies, of course, but
Yes.
What does it look like in your role?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, the day in the life of a PR person is never ever the same. But really, my main focus is on driving the strategy for all of our clients. So that means figuring out what their business goals are and making sure we're in the loop on what their business goals are, and then figuring out what public relations tactics or communications tactics we can deploy to work towards those business goals. So that's a really big part of our day to day. But at the same time, because we're a tech focused agency and we're more boutique, it's really fun that everyone on the team gets to wear so many hats. So as an account director, I get to wear my strategy hat most of the day. But then sometimes I also have the opportunity to do media pitching. I still get to have a hand in reporting and showing results to our clients. So it's really fun to be able to both kind of grow in my career and learn new, like, higher level management skills, but then also still get to get my hands dirty every day.
Yeah. And then, you mentioned your decade experience in the PR space. How has that really shifted? How has this AI boom shifted your work, your role, and the work, that your clients need as well?
Yeah, I think the reality is that actually a lot of a lot of core traditional public relations work is highly repeatable. And when things are repeatable, that means that AI can do it a lot of the time. So it's real AI has really helped us kind of cut the grunt work in half, like it has for many industries, so that we can focus really on strategy and reaching the right people with the right messages. So again, really cutting down on things that, AI is really good at cutting down on things that are repeatable and painful and time consuming. So those are the ways we use it.
So if someone's listening to this, I'm always interested in. I've had the chance to connect with different consultants and different small business owners and large business owners, and one of the questions I keep coming back to is like, how do your clients know that they need you? And what are those questions that bring a customer to you guys, and like how. What is the point where customers say, okay, now I need to work with a PR firm? Like, what is that?
Um, I mean, of course, I'm biased, but I think everyone should want to work with a PR firm because, no matter what stage in your business is at, because building awareness is just key to the foundation of business. People cannot buy your product or they cannot buy your service if they do not know that you exist in the first place. So public relations is instrumental in ensuring that people know that you exist in the first place. So I think that at any stage of a business, that, public relations can be beneficial. But in terms of like the questions that, you might ask yourself, or when is it right for PR, it's always when, is there a pivotal moment in your business? Like, are you going from small to medium? Do you have a new product launch? Anytime there's something new to talk about or something that's a really big business initiative, that's a really great time to consider bringing public relations into the loop earlier rather than later, so you can have a plan in place and start creating a groundswell of news and buzz around whatever you're doing.
No, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. So what are some best practices for businesses that may or may not need a PR firm?
Best practices in terms of what specifically?
Just in your experience, like what would you kind of high level, wish everyone knew, right? Like, not everyone has had the opportunity to have 10 plus years of experience in this field. So what are some things that you just really wish everyone knew?
I think I wish that everyone knew kind of the power in public relations, and that it's okay that we can't track it. So one thing that in public relations that we really is a challenge for everyone is attribution. So how do I know that public relations is working?
Yeah.
With paid advertising, for example, there's a lot of times a one-to-one line. You do an activation, there is a link to buy a button. You can track how many people bought a product based on a paid marketing activation like that. Whereas with PR, you may read an article about the top 5 best sunscreens for your skin type, and one of our clients may be in there, and that we strategically place them in there. But you might not buy that sunscreen until you need it like 2 months later. So public relations is really hard to track attribution. So I wish that everyone knew that, we should not focus so heavily on tracking, and just know that inherently when you share your stories from a business, when you are talking about yourself in many different channels, from social to podcasts to being interviewed in the media, that it's okay that we can't track it. It's like kind of just a magic secret sauce that you have to just trust the process, and that over time it builds brand awareness, and then therefore results in leads or sales.
Super cool. So then how do you use AI in your daily life?
Yeah, I think my favorite way to use AI, again, it's limiting those repeatable and painful tasks that take a lot of time.
Like what are those repeatable tasks?
So, like drafting interview questions. So, a lot of our job is coming up with story ideas for brands. And in order to do that, we need to interview experts on those. So, instead of sitting at a blank page and ideating what interview questions I want to ask, I had AI assist me with that. It used to be a process where I would spend 30 minutes to an hour drafting interview questions. And now I can draft those same interview questions in about 10 minutes.
Do you train your chat, your GPT, or whatever LLM you're using? Do you really train it on what you're looking for beforehand?
Yes. So we at Crackle put a really big emphasis on prompt training here.
Cool.
AI is only as useful as the information that you feed it. So we take a lot of care to not just throw things at it and hope it, gives us what we need. We really like to take time to be specific with it. We definitely, for clients where we do LinkedIn content, or for other clients where we do often commentary submissions for magazines, we train individual projects within the LLM to pull just that information for that person and to do so in their voice. And that really helps us cut the time down a lot.
Wow, very cool. Okay, so continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No worries. Another one of my most favorite ways to use AI is to synthesize the themes and the essence of data. So a lot of times in public relations, especially with our clients, we like to do custom research. For whatever given industry, we like to, collect survey data from those people in the industry to get a pulse on what they're thinking, trends, predictions for the future. So when we have all that raw data, when we have those 500 survey responses, while before I would spend hours looking at every individual tab of data to see what the trends were and where, there were storylines. Now I can have AI do the first pass at that, give me really high level themes, but then give me the important data points underneath that support that theme. And then I go back through, instead of having to ID from the start, now my job is to, one, check all the data and make sure it didn't hallucinate, and two, see if it, missed any other interesting themes. And then, of course, three, just kind of bringing it all together and figuring out what is the high level story overall that this data is telling. So it's really good at synthesizing data and getting you started on where the interesting tidbits are.
Well, and I will never lose an opportunity to come back and reiterate what you just said about making sure it doesn't hallucinate, especially with data. I mean, it's so important to just not fully trust it, we always say at Jam AI, we use AI to make, time to be more human. And yes. And do your human part to really make sure that they aren't making up numbers for you, because that'll happen.
Exactly. I mean, that is when people ask me, well, what ways shouldn't you use AI? I always say math, right? Which is kind of conflicting from what I just said, right? Because synthesizing themes from data is kind of math, but it's the models have gotten better, but it's still bad at it. And you're right, it does still make things up. So it's good to get your creative ideas flowing, but we must check and triple check that the numbers, even when you've given it the numbers to work with, that those numbers are right.
And I love how you said that your agency does such an emphasis on prompting. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. What does that look like training for you guys? Does that look like conversations? Is there kind of like a standard? Talk to me a little bit more about what that looks like for you all.
So we started all the way back it was in 2023. We started a prompt library. And what that kind of serves as our training wheels. So whether we have existing people at the agency who haven't used AI as much, or we have new people who come and begin working with us as we're growing, we always equip these people with our prompt library. Now, I've heard of some people having a prompt library with hundreds of prompts in it, right? Ours is about 5 prompts. And the reason why it's 5 is because I really think that a prompt library or their AI training wheels, it's just a mechanism to show you what pieces of the puzzle you need to include in a prompt to get a high value output. So once someone learns the basics of those key prompts, drafting a press release, drafting interview questions, then their brain instinctively is able to apply those same concepts to other prompts.
Totally. So if you're talking to a small business right now and they're not quite at a place where they can bring on a PR firm, how would you encourage them to use AI to kind of, or even like what prompts would you recommend that they, maybe use for themselves to kind of, just bring awareness, and think as a PR professional? What would you recommend for those small business owners?
I would recommend that they start by asking the whatever large language model of choice is to recommend a public relations plan for them.
Wow.
I would, of course, there are a lot of holes missing. Of course, it's going to recommend things that are kind of silly and that you might not actually want to do, which is why you would, want a real PR expert to say, yes, you should do this, and then you should not do that. But I think, there are some components of public relations that are just very core and very traditional that still really work today. And because of how the models are trained, they're aware of those things. So if you ask for a basic public relations plan and you want to get started, it probably won't give you half bad recommendations.
Interesting. Well, and I have, I'm curious because to me, and I mean, I've been in marketing for, gosh, I don't know, 15 years now. And, I studied it and my master's and so, I have this background in marketing, and still this idea of like a PR firm seems so out of reach to me. And I'm just wondering, you're in this space every day, what would you say to those people who think like working with a PR firm needs to be this, you need to get to a certain point with your company, or you need to be some sort of political figure, or, and maybe I don't want to project on it, but on any means, and maybe that idea is just something that is unique to me and not to others. But is that something you've heard before? Have you heard this idea where people think like working with a PR firm just seems so out of reach for them? And if so, like, is it that far out of reach? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things here. One, I can understand where it might feel like it's out of reach. It's the same thing as buying, a big fancy CRM or buying a big fancy tool. It's a big price tag. But when you get to work with a public relations agency, you're getting years and years and years of experience. So there is a bigger price tag, attached to that, because you're getting really well educated and well-groomed professionals. What I would recommend there is there are a lot of fantastic public relations freelancers out there. These are people who a lot of times they specialize in an industry and they come in at a much lower price point, and you can kind of leverage them on an ad hoc basis. So a public relations agency, we want to work with you for the long term. It's really difficult when we have a client or brand come to us and they're like, we just want to do public relations for 3 months to launch this thing and then we're going to be done. Like, you need to have, yes, a constant, steady drumbeat of news and information about your brand out there. So if working with, a big, more established public relations firm, is out of range of the budget, it's always a great option to start with a public relations freelancer who would be more willing to work on an ad hoc basis and would have lower rates.
Yeah, and PR doesn't always need to be like damage control, right? And I love that immediately off the bat you were like, no, we bring awareness to brands, we bring awareness to our clients, and to me, if more than anything, like that's one of my biggest takeaways from this call is public relations is that it's that awareness piece.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in my day to day, I do very, very little crisis communications. A lot of times, like, because crisis communications, as you've seen, that's the thing that comes to mind for public relations because it can go wrong really, really fast. So that's why there are dedicated professionals who just focus on crisis communications. That does not mean that our agency doesn't help handle crisis communications. We have people on our team who absolutely are well versed in that. But the best public relations is proactive. So you have a groundswell of, positive things out there about you or your brand. Another thing, I was going to say, another thing that you can do is just, be vocal on LinkedIn. If you are trying to reach a B2B audience, be local on LinkedIn. If it's a B2C audience, obviously other channels like Insta, Facebook, TikTok, etc. So I think those are ways that you can get started. But yes, the core is always, you want to have a groundswell of positive things that you out there about you first, before hopefully you have to deal with crisis communications.
No, what a nice reminder about the importance of being proactive and not reactive. And I think that's, especially small business owners, you're just like, a lot of the work is sometimes just putting out fires and just trying to make it, and so this idea of being proactive on top of that is really hard to think past, but just thank you so much for that reminder. So, before we wrap this up, just talk to us a little bit about, how AI has changed this industry for you.
I think it's changed the industry in a really positive way.
Amazing.
With the caveat about, I think one issue we see is with more entry level or junior level folks trying to use AI to cut corners. So if you have, your 10,000 hours under your belt, when LLM spit out something that's wrong, an experienced person can catch those issues. But if you don't know what you don't know and you're a more entry level person, you might not catch those things that are inaccurate or just like the wrong direction. So I think the advent of AI has been so positive for public relations people because we can create double or triple the amount of content and quotes and bylines and press releases for our clients in a fraction of the time.
Amazing.
But we just have to be so careful, really, no matter what level you're at, to make sure that, the outputs you're getting are legitimate and that they're still backed in strategy and we're not just copying and pasting things from LLMs and then, passing them off.
Totally. And I know we're about to be over. If I don't ask this question, it'll keep me up at night. How do you guys do PR for your own agency?
Number one is LinkedIn. So we don't do any cold calls or any like outbound outreach. We 100% generate our interest through Perry Hedrick, our founder's LinkedIn. Because he's out there preaching every day about the good, the bad, the ugly about public relations, every single one of our clients comes to us via LinkedIn or from referrals from our existing clients. So
Cool.
yeah, so that is how another way that we do PR for ourselves occasionally. One thing that we just launched today actually is the first AEO news announcement press release template. So we have launched, a template that people can follow to optimize their news announcements for the age of AI to make it more discoverable, to make your news more discoverable in LLMs. So that is a free tool that we put out into the world. Perry Hedrick, again, Crackle PR's founder, launched it today via LinkedIn, and it's there for any business owner, large or small, to leverage.
Great. We will definitely be sure to share that on our resources page here. So thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share, or anything that'll keep you awake at night if you don't bring up before we
Yeah,
close?
I think the thing that keeps me up at night is just about where we're going to head with AI upskilling. Things are changing so fast, and if you do not equip your team with the resources and the time to play with AI and to try different tools, like, you're going to get left in the dust like so quickly. So I think the thing that keeps me up at night is, even though I think at Crackle PR we're really good at staying on top and sharing news with each other, but things are just simply changing so fast that it's that desire to make sure that we're just all staying ahead of the curve, and being very proactive with learning how to, not have AI replace people, but how to work with AI so we can work faster and harder and have less stressful days.
Absolutely. And we're all about that at Jam AI. We totally get it. And, I feel so grateful, and I can't say this enough. Jam has really positioned herself as this thought leader in the space, and she takes the time and has the interest and the patience to really understand these new tools and these updates and, all of these revised and before I even have heard of one, she's like, oh yeah, that's old. And it is full-time work to stay on top of it. And I love that you mentioned that, for small business owners, like, it's so important to utilize resources and put aside resources to not get left behind there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. And I'll grab that LinkedIn and I'll find that template. And, what you guys are doing is some really cool things. So I appreciate you sharing and your time today. And I look forward to following along.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the great conversation.
Yeah, you too. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.